Well, I lost the bet because I for sure thought it was going to be Harvey. But it is what it is. Doug Weinstein, step up to the goddamn plate. I have requested a certificate of immediate review so an appellate court will have the opportunity to weigh in on the important issue of mistrial instead of wasting further time and taxpayer resources on this putrescent trial. That means rotting, by the way. No remedies fashioned by this honorable court can cure the due process violations that have repeatedly occurred over the past 19 months. No instruction can cause this jury to unhear Mr. Copeland's testimony. A fair judge going forward can't cure a biased judge presiding over this case in the past. And he goes on to say, he said something else. I think he said he didn't put it in writing, but it'll be addressed on Monday. So Weinstein obviously didn't like the ruling that the judge did, and that's perfectly fine. So he fired back with, let's have your superiors look at this. Y'all got to understand something real quick. And we really do, so just forget that phrase I just said. Understand that, yeah, me and the judge might be cool, but she got a job, I got a job. And the job of the judge is to play referee. And if I feel that the referee is not doing the job right, I have the right to do this. So I'm with it. I felt like something was coming, but I felt like Harvey was going to be the one. But it makes sense since Friday, Weinstein basically had his motion kicked to the curb. So now he decided, let's kick this to the curb. But we got a long video ahead of y'all, so I figured I'd just drop this one into it because there will be no way to add the Weinstein response and drop this long page Whitaker video. So please enjoy your Sunday. Share to keep your people aware. Subscribe, turn on bell, stay notified. Let's get into it. So just like you, myself, I was wondering, what the hell, what's going on here? She's swatting down everything. And me personally, we tend to believe, because we should, to know that the referees know more about the game than the players. And that the lawyers are the coaches, right? Yeah, except there's this one thing that happens. It's called Spotlight. So let me pose a question to you guys. Do you know what was the longest running trial in Georgia history before this one?
Defendants in Georgia's longest and most expensive criminal case must now find new attorneys.
Their public defender removed himself from defending the educators convicted in the Atlanta Public Schools cheating scandal. Fox 5's Angelique Proctor joins us from downtown Atlanta with this latest development. Angelique?
Courtney, you know, a lot of people thought the APS cheating scandal had been resolved, but 6 of those educators who were convicted want new trials. Now a judge tells them they will also need new attorneys.
It was a strange and extraordinary way to arrange for a representation to have this many clients. We all know that this isn't a common thing.
Defense attorney Stephen Scarborough continued to argue 6 defendants for 1 public defender is too much and creates a conflict. He asked Judge Jerry Baxter to remove him from the case.
How did it take you 2 years, if it's so plain there's a conflict, to even bring this up?
Well, the record was huge. That's not an excuse, let me just say.
Judge Baxter removed public defender Scarborough, but the issue quickly turned to whether the defendants, Michael Pitts, Sharon Davis Williams, Shawnee Robinson, Tabika Jordan, Diane Buckner Webb, and Theresia Copeland are indigent in the first place.
My 6 clients qualify for appointed counsel, and we can go from there.
Prosecutors contend 5 of the 6 are not.
I suspect one of 2 things is happening. They have never reported their finances appropriately when things have changed or of those nature, or the public defender's office has ignored the fact that they are representing individuals who are not indigent.
Now, Judge Baxter asked all 6 defendants to be back here 6 weeks from now with a new attorney, be it public or private, but he told them they should be ready to go. In downtown, Angelique Proctor, Fox 5 News.
All right, Angelique, thanks.
That was a year ago. I'm talking 2023, a year ago. And y'all notice who that judge was? Well, I want y'all to remember something, because a lot of us are not Georgians. I want y'all to remember something that he wrote in 2016. Pay attention to the date and to the time, because it gets real interesting. I'd like to start off here, right here. Judge Jerry Baxter, 42 years is enough. For many Atlantans, Fulton County Superior Court Judge Jerry Baxter will always be associated with the trial of a dozen Atlanta public school educators accused of cheating on standardized tests. After the trial, Baxter said he would soon be putting himself out to pasture. This was October 14, 2016 at 4:44 p.m. Yeah, I know. He's still here. Oh, man. So let's talk numbers. I know y'all like numbers and stuff like that and everything, right? There were 178 individuals charged that were school officials, including 38 principals. Whoa. It took 9 months to do, but it's still ongoing because, you know, we got appeals and all that stuff. And some people believe that they weren't treated fairly. And Baxter, at the very end of it, before sentencing, when he had kicked out a bunch of people, had literally said, "I'll be here." Interesting thing to say. Now, I know what y'all wondering, man. Nash, how was it all connected? You got to make sense of all of this stuff. Well, let's just understand who Justice Leah is, because she said some very prophetic words that a lot of people didn't catch on to at the end of that trial. And I want y'all to pay attention to what she says, because here's something I'm going to keep on repeating. Spotlight. And you'll get what I mean after this.
Let's take a look then at the state RICO statute. I asked former Attorney General Mike Bowers in a conversation we'll hear in a few moments about how the state, what it says that would apply in this case. In other words, how could the prosecutor say, okay, we're going to take this RICO statute and apply it to this case? What is it about the state racketeering law that would fit here?
Yeah, the state racketeering law, as I understand it, is a broader law than the federal law. And, you know, they found a conspiracy among all these teachers, except for one, to, you know, violate the law, to erase these test scores,
which is making false statements.
Now, as I see it, there was no theft by taking charge. Isn't that correct? So the money probably wasn't involved. It was changing the test scores, making false statements, false swearing.
And as Attorney General Bowers said, and I want to check with you to see if you agree with him, the very act of changing those test scores, that in itself was making false statements, he says, under the law, which I think a lot of people might not think, oh, that's unethical, that's unprofessional, that's wrong. But how is that actually making a false statement that would get you criminally prosecuted?
It's lying, it's cheating. You know, our statutes are extremely broad. So it is unethical, it is immoral, it is wrong, but it's also a crime, you know, and the jury said so. That it's, you know, to get a unanimous verdict of 12 people takes a lot. And as a former judge, you know, I do have faith in the jury system. They get it wrong sometimes, but it's hard to imagine that with the diligence that they took in going through all of this, that they at least didn't do the job they thought they should be doing.
And with the 12 defendants all being tried at once, is that typical in a RICO trial? Because you have a group of people that you're accusing of conspiring. So is that typical that you try them all at once with a RICO charge?
Well, that's definitely the way the prosecution wants to try everybody, because they can show the world, including the jury, the scheme, the you know, all the pieces. And I would think it would be very difficult to show this puzzle without having them all in one group. So that would not be what the defense wanted. And that, I think, is going to be grounds for their appeal. That's definitely what Paul Howard and the prosecution would want.
And speaking of District Attorney Paul Howard, he alluded to the strength of the plea deals as to the severity of the widespread cheating, which in his mind helped convince the jury that it wasn't just something that, as he put it wasn't a fantasy. It wasn't something that the district attorney's office just made up. They proved that there was a conspiracy of widespread cheating. Go ahead.
And they did. I mean, he was right. again, I do have faith in the 12 jurors. A lot of people I've been talking around, a lot of people think that this was Judge Baxter's decision. It wasn't. This was a decision by 12 people in the community who were the jurors.
And when we come back, we'll take a look at what this decision might mean as we continue our conversation with former Georgia State Supreme Court Chief Justice Leah Ward Sears with Rose Scott. I'm Dennis O'Hare. This is A Closer Look, a special edition on 90.1 WABE. The Closer Look continues with Rose Scott. I'm Dennis O'Hare. We're spending much of this edition looking at the fallout from yesterday's verdict in the Atlanta Public Schools cheating scandal trial. 11 of the 12 remaining defendants, all former educators, convicted on the most serious count, which was racketeering. I want to get to what message this sends from a legal point of view. First of all, Justice Sears, we talked a few weeks ago, and you thought that whatever this verdict is, it would set kind of a precedent legally now, let alone what it might send to educators. What do you think this sweeping conviction is going to do in terms of legal cases? Will we see a lot more quote-unquote unlikely racketeering cases brought?
I think so. I think Paul Howard did something that was rare. Certainly, it was not used before with educators, but I think we're going to see a lot more RICO for a lot more conspiracies or crimes or group efforts that otherwise were not considered mafioso type things. I think people can learn from this around the nation.
Will that open up grounds for appeal? In other words, defense attorneys, whether in this case or others, other future ones, saying, RICO was never intended to do this.
Yes, I think that will be a grounds of appeal. It'll be a tough ground to have overturned.
Because a conspiracy is a conspiracy?
Conspiracy is a conspiracy, and the legislative branch, in its wisdom, decided to make Georgia's RICO law broader than the federal RICO law. The courts are very, particularly appellate courts, are very sensitive about intruding into the province of the legislative branch. If the people don't want RICO used like this, through their legislative branch, they can change it, but not through the court system, I wouldn't think.
I want to get your thoughts on, and there's been a lot of reaction to the handcuffing of the defendants and taking them out of the courtroom. And it's Judge Baxter's courtroom, and as a former judge, it's your courtroom, you can do what you want. But was that a little surprising for you that they would handcuff them and take them immediately into custody when they had been on bond for such a long time?
Right. I was a Fulton County Superior Court judge for a number of years. It wasn't surprising to me because as soon as somebody is convicted, they're a convicted felon, that's what you do. That's the protocol. I think it was probably shocking to a lot of people because these aren't your average convicted felons, murder, rape, child molestation, that kind of thing. These are educators. And, you don't expect to see educators, including teachers and administrators, handcuffed and taken out to a black van. But that's what I would have done. To Judge Baxter's, you have to treat everybody equally, and I think that's what he was trying to do.
And he had some verbal opposition to that from some of the defense attorneys, and he said, look, I'm sorry, they made their bed, they must lie in it now. Judge Baxter, how difficult is it to preside over a case this long and keep all the pieces together, keep both sides together, the state and the defense attorneys, and 12 different defense attorneys? How difficult is that to keep all that in line over months?
It's very difficult. I mean, you've got the defense, you've got the prosecution, and then in a case like this, you have the media, which is, God bless you all, but it's a lot to handle and to do it well. The media is a huge influence in not only the community, but in the way these trials are often conducted, and to manage all of that and to do it well as he did is a great undertaking.
Did you ever get upset with the media with a case that you had? You can tell us.
No, I never did. I had been a newspaper reporter in my early years, so I get it, and was, I understood what the other side looked like. But I had a number of other judges, particularly when I was making my way through the system a long time ago, who just thought that media was intrusive, meant to derail things, et cetera. I think that's changing. I hope it's changing.
Want to come back to the one other point about trying everybody together, because it's a catch-22, I think, for somebody like not just the prosecution, but for Judge Baxter. Because if you are trying to prove a conspiracy, you have to, as Rose pointed out, you have to have the alleged conspirators all in front of the jury in a way.
It would be nice.
Yeah. On the other hand, a defense attorney might say, look, I'm trying to prove my individual client was not part of this conspiracy. So if you have all these people together with all this testimony about person A, B, and C, my defendant is going to look bad just from hearing all this stuff about these other people and being in the same room with them.
Guilt by association.
Yeah, exactly.
And there is the tension. That's the appealable issue. You do, again, the prosecution wants everybody looped together because, it makes everyone look guiltier, frankly. And the defense counsel doesn't. They don't want to be, they are concerned that their clients may be looped into this wide net that's been cast and may not, in fact, be guilty.
So will the successful prosecution in this case mean that, again, other conspiracy cases in the future, we might see more huge trials in Georgia with multiple defendants all being tried at once? Does this give prosecutors around the state the green light to say, hey, you might be able to win this?
Yes, I think so. Not just around the state, but around the country, because I think this is a trial that's been watched nationally. But it's also going to give, lawyers on the other side who may have wondered, oh, this can't happen, it's not likely. They're going to begin to develop tools to be able to fight this. And so the stakes are going to get higher on both sides.
And for one defendant, Dessa Curb, who was acquitted of all charges, there was something that the jury obviously didn't see fit in terms of her charges. Moving forward, when you look at the heat that Paul Howard's office took, spending too much money, this lingering on for so many months, has he in a sense sort of been vindicated? Because he took a lot of heat as well, Justice Sears.
I think so. In this whole thing, I don't know if anyone was vindicated. I think there were a lot of lessons that have been learned. This is a sad day for Atlanta, the Atlanta public school system, and for the city. But yeah, I mean, it's better for him that it went this way. I think a lot of lawyers and community people were poo-pooing the whole RICO thing. RICO for teachers? And he proved that he could do it. So yes, the vindication of a sort.
Well, you were saying in our last conversation that it is hard to think of educators as people who would be involved in criminal activity. And even this does, what kind of message does this send to educators? Does it put a chilling effect on them? Again, with a sweeping verdict like this, looking back on what you said before, what do you think the message is to educators from this, whether they're frontline teachers or administrators?
I think it's to not cheat. But, there are other, the message is don't cheat, don't lie, don't steal, don't change answers and all that. But there are...
but they still face that testing pressure,
That's
don't they?
true. That's where I wanted to go with this. That has not changed. I think if possible, there should have been an indictment brought, but it's not possible, against standardized testing and the whole scheme that caused this to occur. I mean, standardized testing, there's heavy bias against minority and poor children. And until we actually get that, and not just poor children and minorities, but them big time, but until we understand that standardized testing needs to be really reworked and rethought about, we're going to be in serious trouble.
As we close out, Justice Sears, there were 21 defendants who took a plea deal. And I know it's not fair to probably speak for these 11 defendants who've now been found guilty, but looking at the plea deals, and there were some very good lawyers from what, from the other community will tell you, these are some very good lawyers, top lawyers. Would you have maybe recommended that plea deals be the best way? And unless you're just absolutely innocent, and it's not for me to say, well, I don't know who did what, but, looking back on this now, there may be some sitting at Fulton County saying, maybe I should have taken a plea deal.
Right. In hindsight, which is
always,
easy. Yeah, of course. And I understand most of the people pled to first offender treatment, meaning that at some point their convictions are going to be wiped off the books.
And some paid a fine, some had community service.
That's right.
And
these people, the 11 that have been convicted, are facing trial time now tantamount to like child molestation. That child molestation is a 20 rape, and man, that's a.
Which brings up a final thought, and this is where you put your prognosticator hat on rather than your judge's robe. Do you think that the maximum sentence will be handed out to most of these defendants, especially given the fact that, as Rose pointed out, some of the people who were originally charged with them took some plea deals that involve very little time, if any, behind bars?
Right. If I were the judge, I would not impose the maximum sentence. If I were the judge, I would not impose the sentence that the people who pled guilty to, community service, probation, first offender, there would be somewhere in between, because there has to be some the state has to get something from these people for putting them through all this effort.
Former State Supreme Court Chief Justice Leah Ward Sears. Justice Sears, always good to talk to you. Thank you so much for coming.
So here's what we know. That RICO with the kids and all of that stuff and everything like that, that made Fani Willis a household name. To defeat an incumbent by the name of Paul Howard. Now, I have a video, whole playlist dedicated to all of this stuff, so I'll pin it in the comments, and y'all can take a gander upon it, because it's pretty interesting. I do some real deep diving. Even though I'm not a journalist, I'm an opinionist, so let me make sure, because I get tasked with that a bunch. And I know some of y'all complaining real quick. Just let me land real quick. I'm an opinionist who shows you how I got to my opinion, and I publicize it, so that way I ain't sued. This is all opinion, by the way, based off the facts and evidence that I found. Sources can be basically given upon request. So, Judge Whitaker knows a couple of things. One, that's her mentor. At the very end of that clip, you heard her say the state has to get something. And that's part of the reason why in my thought process, in most of our thought process, those are orders. What Judge Leah did was cast a siren. She was a siren the whole entire thing. Added with the fact of, do y'all know what the lawyers keep on saying? The world is watching. Paige Whitaker is a very intelligent lady, but she's very, very calculating. She shot up through the ranks fast as hell. And I'm not saying she did anything illegal or no crap like that. She is good at her job, but she's also good at directions. What directions? Direction of her career. Mark my words. Whitaker is shooting for that Chief Justice spot. A lot of people don't know, but some of these judges that get into their spots are appointed. If Glanville is allowed to appoint his successor, you don't think he might look at Whitaker? Whitaker, when she ran, destroyed, and I mean destroyed, her opponent by like 50,000 votes. It was 90,000 to 40, but it's the numbers is a little off and stuff like that, but basically over 50,000 votes. That is massive. She had a ton of people supporting her, from senators to sitting officials, other sitting officials, pardon me. And she had Judge Leah. That matters because Leah is one of those women that Fani Willis praises. So we understand that judges and DAs work hand in hand. They're good friends, very good friends. Even Whitaker said that. So for years, Judge Whitaker and Fani Willis have been friends. This is all calculated because if Judge Whitaker is always attached to this, she will always be quote unquote famous. She will always have a name. She will always be synonymous with the longest running trial in Georgia history. You telling me that 8 years ago, Judge Baxter made those words, but not only did he make those words, he literally is still on the bench after talking about he was going to quit. Did y'all know that a year after Judge Baxter made that ruling, that he became senior judge, Superior Court of Fulton County? He went from Superior Court of Fulton County from 2000 to 2017. Now from 2017 up until now. Think about that. He did the longest running trial in Georgia and basically took a step up. Let me keep on going. Lay out the pastor, say you will. No. What I'm basically saying, and to wrap it all up, is this. Those are orders from Judge Leah to Whitaker, but they're intended to help out who? Fani Willis. If a very popular DA endorses Whitaker, and the first female, I forget what she served and stuff like that, endorses Whitaker, that means something. It's all connected. and in the worst way, because this ain't about justice. This is about re-elections and popularity. But if you disagree with me, you disagree. But over here, this is what we got. Hey, yo, you. Can you subscribe and turn on that bell too? Because when you do, you're helping unbiased independent news.